The winter in Maplewood was always harsh, but this year it seemed determined to break records. The snow had begun falling days ago, relentless and unforgiving, blanketing the entire town in a thick layer of white. Trees bent under the weight of the icy buildup, their branches groaning as if they might snap at any moment. Roads that were once bustling with cars and pedestrians now lay deserted, swallowed by the storm. People had retreated indoors, huddled around fireplaces or space heaters waiting for the weather to ease up. But not everyone stayed safe inside. Daniel Harper, a man in his early 30s with calloused hands and a kind smile, found himself walking home late one evening after a long shift at the diner where he worked. He pulled his worn coat tighter around him, the fabric doing little to shield him from the biting wind. His boots crunched against the snow as he trudged forward, each step feeling heavier than the last. As he turned onto a quieter road near the edge of town, something caught his eye. A faint glimmer of light, flickering through the swirling snowflakes. At first he thought it might be his imagination playing tricks on him, but as he squinted into the distance, he realized it was coming from a car parked awkwardly off the side of the road. Its hazard lights blinked weakly, almost drowned out by the storm's intensity. Curiosity tugged at him, urging him to investigate. It wasn't safe for anyone to be stranded out here, especially in these conditions. Taking a deep breath, Daniel changed course and headed toward the vehicle. The cold gnawed at his face and his fingers felt stiff despite the gloves he wore, but he pressed on, driven by an innate sense of responsibility. When he reached the car, he tapped lightly on the driver's window, careful not to startle whoever might be inside. For a moment nothing happened. Then slowly, the window rolled down just enough for a face to appear. A woman peered out, her eyes wide with both relief and exhaustion. Her hair clung damply to her forehead and her cheeks were flushed red from the cold. She looked like she hadn't slept in hours. "Thank God you're here," she said, her voice trembling. "I've been stuck for hours." Daniel leaned closer, shielding his face from the wind. "Are you hurt?" he asked, concern etched across his features. She shook her head. "No, just freezing. My heater stopped working and my phone died ages ago." Without hesitation, Daniel sprang into action. He helped her gather her belongings, a small bag and a coat, and guided her away from the car. The snowstorm showed no signs of letting up, and staying there was too dangerous. "Come with me," he said firmly. "You can't stay out here." She hesitated briefly before nodding, too exhausted to argue. Together they made their way through the blizzard, Daniel leading the way while keeping a protective hand on her arm to steady her. Every step was a battle against the wind, which howled like a living thing trying to push them back. Yet Daniel refused to give up, his determination unwavering even as his muscles burned with fatigue. Eventually, they reached his cabin, a modest structure tucked away in the woods, barely visible through the curtain of snow. Inside, the air was warm and inviting compared to the frigid world outside. Daniel ushered the woman inside and immediately set about making her comfortable. He lit the fireplace, adding logs until the flames crackled merrily, casting a golden glow over the room. Then he fetched a blanket and draped it over her shoulders, noticing how she shivered uncontrollably. "Here, drink this," he said, handing her a steaming mug of tea. She accepted it gratefully, wrapping her chilled hands around the warmth of the mug. "Thank you," she murmured, her voice soft but sincere. "I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't come along." For a while, neither of them spoke. The only sounds were the crackling fire and the occasional gust of wind rattling the windows. When the worst of her shivers subsided, the woman introduced herself. "I'm Evelyn Carter," she said, offering a weak smile. Daniel nodded. "Daniel Harper," he replied. Their conversation remained light at first, simple exchanges about the weather and the town, but there was an unspoken understanding between them. Both were strangers brought together by circumstance, yet there was a quiet comfort in sharing the same space during such a chaotic time. As the hours passed, Evelyn began to open up a little more, speaking vaguely about her travels and why she'd been driving through Maplewood in the first place. Daniel listened attentively, sensing that she wasn't ready to share everything just yet. Despite her guardedness, there was something intriguing about Evelyn. She carried herself with a quiet grace, her words measured and deliberate. There was a depth to her gaze, as though she'd seen things most people couldn't fathom. Daniel wondered about her story but didn't pry. Instead, he focused on ensuring she was comfortable, bringing her food and checking the fire regularly. By the time night fell, Evelyn seemed much calmer, though still visibly weary. She thanked him again before settling down by the fire, her eyes closing as sleep finally claimed her. Watching her rest, Daniel couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this encounter than met the eye. Little did he know, this chance meeting would change the course of his life forever. Over the next few days, the snowstorm raged on, trapping them both indoors. With nowhere to go and nothing else to do, Daniel and Evelyn spent their time talking, sharing stories of their lives. Daniel opened up about his struggles, how he worked tirelessly at the diner and another part-time job to make ends meet. How he dreamed of starting his own business someday but felt trapped by debt and bad luck. Evelyn listened intently, her expression thoughtful. In turn, she shared fragments of her own past, though she remained vague about specifics. She mentioned traveling extensively and working on various projects, but never elaborated beyond that. Something about her reticence intrigued Daniel, yet he respected her boundaries, content to simply enjoy her company. Their conversations often stretched late into the night, the fire casting flickering shadows on the walls. Despite the circumstances that had brought them together, there was an undeniable connection between them, a mutual respect and understanding that transcended their differences. Evelyn admired Daniel's resilience and selflessness, qualities she saw less and less of in the world she inhabited. For his part, Daniel found solace in her presence, her calm demeanor providing a sense of stability amidst the chaos outside. They laughed, debated, and even argued playfully over trivial matters, forming a bond that neither of them expected but both cherished deeply. As the storm finally began to subside, Evelyn announced her intention to leave as soon as the roads cleared. Though grateful for Daniel's kindness, she seemed eager to continue her journey. On the morning of her departure, she handed him a small envelope. "This is for your troubles," she said simply, her tone leaving no room for argument. Daniel tried to protest, insisting he hadn't done anything special, but Evelyn was insistent. It wasn't until later that evening, after she'd gone, that he opened the envelope. Inside was a check, an amount so staggering that Daniel stared at it in disbelief. Beneath the signature line, written neatly in ink, were the words, "To help you build the future you deserve." Daniel sat in stunned silence, the envelope clutched tightly in his hands. The check inside bore an amount so large that it felt surreal, like something out of a dream, or perhaps a cruel joke. He stared at the numbers again and again, trying to process what they meant. This wasn't just life-changing money, this was wealth beyond anything he'd ever imagined. His mind raced with questions. Why had Evelyn given him such an extraordinary gift? Was it gratitude for helping her during the storm? Or was there more to it? The note beneath the signature offered some explanation. To help you build the future you deserve. But it only deepened the mystery. Who was Evelyn Carter, really? And why had she chosen him? Unable to shake off his curiosity, Daniel decided to do some research. Sitting at his small kitchen table, he pulled out his laptop and typed her name into the search bar. What he found left him speechless. Evelyn Carter wasn't just any traveler stranded in a snowstorm. She was one of the wealthiest individuals in the country. Her name appeared in countless articles about philanthropy, business ventures, and high-profile investments. She was known for funding innovative startups and supporting causes aimed at improving lives. Photos showed her attending galas, shaking hands with world leaders, and speaking at conferences, yet none of those images matched the quiet, reserved woman who had shared his cabin during the storm. How had someone so powerful managed to remain so humble? The revelation hit Daniel like a tidal wave. Suddenly everything made sense. The understated elegance of her clothes, the calm confidence she exuded even in dire circumstances, the subtle air of mystery that had intrigued him from the start. But understanding who she was didn't answer. The bigger question: why had she chosen to give him such an incredible gift? He replayed their conversations in his mind, searching for clues. They had talked about dreams, struggles, and aspirations, but nothing stood out as particularly noteworthy. Still, Evelyn had listened intently when he spoke about wanting to start his own business, a community center where struggling families could find support and resources. Could that have been the moment she decided to help him? Determined to honor her generosity, Daniel vowed to use the money wisely. He quit his jobs at the diner and the hardware store, knowing he wouldn't need them anymore. Instead, he enrolled in online courses to learn more about entrepreneurship and nonprofit management. Every day, he spent hours researching how to turn his vision into reality. He dreamed of creating a space where people could come together, not just for food or shelter, but for connection and hope. A place where kids could study after school, parents could access job training programs, and seniors could gather for social events. It would be a hub of opportunity, designed to uplift the entire town of Maplewood. As weeks turned into months, Daniel threw himself into the project with relentless determination. He rented a vacant building on the outskirts of town, its walls covered in peeling paint and its floors creaking underfoot. With the help of friends and neighbors, he began renovating it, turning the dilapidated structure into something vibrant and welcoming. Volunteers poured in, eager to contribute their skills and time. Local carpenters built shelves and tables. Artists painted murals on the walls, and bakers donated trays of cookies for everyone working late into the night. The community rallied around Daniel's dream, united by a shared sense of purpose. Word spread quickly about the project, drawing attention not just from within Maplewood, but also from nearby towns. People were inspired by Daniel's story, a man who had once struggled to make ends meet, now using an unexpected gift to give back to others. Donations began pouring in, ranging from furniture and supplies to cash contributions. Strangers sent letters of encouragement, sharing how Daniel's efforts reminded them of the importance of kindness and resilience. Even local businesses pitched, in offering discounts on materials or sponsoring specific programs. What started as a personal mission soon became a collective endeavor, fueled by the belief that together, they could create something truly transformative. Despite the overwhelming support, Daniel faced challenges along the way. There were moments of doubt when the scale of the project seemed too daunting, times when funds ran low or disagreements arose among volunteers. But every time he felt like giving up, he remembered Evelyn's note. Those simple words, to help you build the future you deserve, became his mantra, pushing him to keep going. He reminded himself that this wasn't just about him anymore. It was about everyone whose lives could be touched by the community center. Each obstacle was another step closer to making his dream a reality. Finally, after months of hard work, the day arrived when the community center opened its doors. The once dilapidated building now sparkled with fresh paint and new fixtures, its halls filled with laughter and chatter. Families wandered through the rooms, marveling at the resources available to them. Kids played board games in one corner while adults browsed books in another. A group of teenagers practiced music in a soundproof room, their melodies drifting through the air. In the main hall, a ribbon-cutting ceremony took place, attended by nearly everyone in town. As Daniel stood before the crowd, thanking them for their support, tears welled up in his eyes. This wasn't just his achievement. It belonged to all of them. In the weeks that followed, the community center became a cornerstone of Maplewood. Parents signed up for workshops on financial literacy and parenting skills. Seniors gathered for weekly coffee mornings, swapping stories and advice. Children attended tutoring sessions, their grades improving steadily. The impact rippled outward, touching lives in ways no one had anticipated. People who had once felt isolated or overlooked now had a place where they belonged. Daniel watched it all unfold with a mixture of pride and humility, knowing that none of it would have been possible without Evelyn's generosity. One crisp autumn afternoon, nearly a year after the snowstorm, Daniel received a letter in the mail. The envelope bore a postmark from a distant city, and his heart skipped a beat when he recognized Evelyn's handwriting. Sitting down at the same kitchen table where he had first discovered her true identity, he carefully opened the letter. Inside was a single sheet of paper, written in her neat, elegant script. She thanked him for the updates he had sent over the past year, expressing admiration for what he had accomplished. Then she revealed something surprising. Meeting Daniel during the storm had been a turning point for her too. At the time, she had been grappling with feelings of disconnection and disillusionment, wondering if her wealth truly made a difference. Witnessing his selflessness and determination had reignited her faith in humanity. Evelyn went on to explain that Daniel's actions had reminded her of the power of small gestures. Helping someone in need, even in the simplest way, could create ripples that extended far beyond what anyone might expect. She admitted that leaving that check behind hadn't been planned. It had been a spur-of-the-moment decision, driven by the realization that she wanted to empower someone who embodied the values she believed in. The letter ended with a note of encouragement. Never underestimate the ripple effect of your actions. You've already changed countless lives, including mine. Holding the letter close, Daniel felt a profound sense of gratitude wash over him. Evelyn's words resonated deeply, reminding him of the interconnectedness of human experiences. That snowy night when he had stopped to help a stranger, he hadn't thought twice about it. To him, it had been the right thing to do, nothing more. Yet that simple act of kindness had set off a chain reaction, transforming not only his life, but also the lives of countless others. As he looked out the window at the golden hues of autumn leaves, Daniel realized something important. Sometimes, the smallest choices we make can lead to the most extraordinary outcomes. And in those moments, we discover the true meaning of giving and receiving. The community center quickly became the heart of Maplewood, a place where people gathered not just out of necessity, but also because it felt like home. Every day brought new faces through its doors, families seeking assistance, teenagers looking for mentorship, and elderly residents eager to share their wisdom. Daniel spent his days overseeing operations, ensuring everything ran smoothly, and listening to feedback from those who used the space. He often stayed late into the night, jotting down ideas for improvements or brainstorming ways to expand the center's reach. Despite the long hours, he never felt tired. There was an energy in the air, a sense of purpose that kept him going. One of the most popular programs at the center was the Youth Mentorship Initiative. Local professionals volunteered their time to guide young people interested in various fields, from engineering to art. One boy named Ethan, barely 13 years old, stood out among the participants. Quiet and reserved, Ethan had always struggled to find his place in school. His grades were poor and he rarely spoke unless prompted. But when he joined the mentorship program, something changed. Under the guidance of a retired architect named Mr. Peterson, Ethan discovered a passion for design. He began sketching buildings, bridges, and parks, his imagination blossoming with each passing week. When Ethan proudly showed Daniel one of his drawings, a detailed blueprint for a futuristic library, Daniel couldn't help but feel a surge of pride. This was exactly what the center was meant to do: unlock potential. As word of the center's success spread, media outlets took notice. Reporters arrived in Maplewood, eager to document the story of a man who had turned a billionaire's gift into a beacon of hope. Cameras captured scenes of laughter and learning, while interviews highlighted the lives transformed by the center. Daniel gave several interviews himself, though he always made sure to deflect praise onto the community. "This isn't my achievement," he would say humbly. "It belongs to everyone who believed in this vision and worked hard to bring it to life." The coverage brought even more attention, leading to additional donations and partnerships with organizations across the state. Yet despite the growing acclaim, Daniel remained grounded, focusing on the work rather than the accolades. Amidst all the activity, Daniel couldn't shake the lingering curiosity about Evelyn. Her letter had provided some answers, but it had also raised new questions. Why had she been traveling alone during such a fierce storm? What personal struggles had she hinted at in her note? And why had she chosen him, of all people, to receive her generosity? These thoughts haunted him quietly, not because he doubted her intentions, but because he wanted to understand her better. He decided to write back, hoping to express his gratitude more fully and perhaps learn more about her. Sitting at his desk one evening, Daniel carefully composed his reply. He thanked Evelyn for her continued support and shared updates about the center's progress. He described moments like Ethan's breakthrough and the joy on parents' faces as they watched their children thrive. He wrote about how her gift had inspired others to pay it forward, creating a ripple effect of kindness throughout the town. Then, hesitantly, he added a personal note. "I've thought a lot about our time together during the storm," he wrote. "You mentioned feeling disconnected before we met. If you ever want to talk about it or anything else, I'm here to listen. You've given me so much, and I'd like to return the favor, however small." Days passed without a response, and Daniel tried not to dwell on it. After all, Evelyn was a busy woman with responsibilities spanning continents. Still, part of him hoped she might reach out, if only to continue their conversation. In the meantime, he threw himself into planning the center's next phase, expanding its services to include mental health counseling and career development workshops. The need was clear, and the community rallied behind the idea, organizing fundraisers and volunteering their expertise. It seemed that every challenge they faced only strengthened their resolve to build something greater. Then, one chilly spring morning, an unexpected visitor arrived at the center. Daniel was sorting through paperwork in his office when a soft knock sounded at the door. Looking up, he froze. Standing there was Evelyn Carter, dressed casually in jeans and a sweater, her hair pulled back into a ponytail. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Finally, Evelyn broke the silence with a warm smile. "I hope you don't mind me dropping by unannounced," she said. Daniel shook his head, still stunned. "Of course not. Please, come in." She stepped inside, glancing around curiously. "This place is incredible," she remarked, her eyes scanning the colorful murals and bustling activity outside the window. "You've done an amazing job." Over coffee, they talked for hours. Evelyn explained that she had taken a sabbatical from her usual whirlwind schedule, using the time to reflect and reconnect with simpler joys. Visiting Maplewood had been spontaneous, driven by a desire to see firsthand the impact of her gift. As they caught up, Daniel noticed subtle changes in her demeanor. Gone was the guardedness he remembered from their first meeting. Instead, she seemed lighter, more at ease. She spoke openly about the challenges she had faced in recent years, the pressures of maintaining her empire, the loneliness that came with constant travel, and the gnawing fear that her wealth might isolate her from genuine human connection. Listening to her, Daniel felt a deep empathy. Though their lives were vastly different, they shared a common thread: the search for meaning and belonging. Before leaving, Evelyn made a surprising announcement. "I'd like to fund another project," she said, her tone casual yet resolute. "Something bigger, maybe a network of centers like this one spread across other towns." Daniel stared at her, overwhelmed by the magnitude of her proposal. "Are you sure?" he asked cautiously. "It's a lot to take on." Evelyn nodded. "I've never been sure of anything. Your work here has shown me what's possible when people come together. Let's make it happen." They spent the rest of the afternoon discussing logistics, dreaming up plans that felt both ambitious and achievable. In the months that followed, Daniel and Evelyn collaborated closely, turning her vision into reality. Together, they identified struggling communities in neighboring regions and began establishing similar centers, each tailored to meet local needs. The process was challenging, requiring endless coordination and problem-solving, but it was also deeply rewarding. Along the way, Daniel learned more about Evelyn, not just as a benefactor, but as a person. She confided in him about her fears and aspirations, sharing stories from her childhood that revealed a side of her few people ever saw. Their friendship deepened, built on mutual respect and trust. The expansion project garnered widespread attention, drawing support from philanthropists, corporations, and government agencies. News outlets dubbed it the Ripple Effect Initiative, highlighting how one act of kindness had sparked a movement. Communities embraced the centers, transforming them into hubs of innovation and compassion. Lives continued to change, stories of triumph emerging daily. Through it all, Daniel remained steadfast, guided by the lessons he had learned during that fateful snowstorm, that even the smallest gestures could have profound consequences, and that true wealth lay not in money, but in connection. Years later, as Daniel stood on stage at a gala celebrating the 10th anniversary of the initiative, he reflected on how far they had come. Beside him sat Evelyn, now a close friend and partner in every sense. Together they had built something extraordinary, a legacy of hope and resilience that would endure for generations. As applause filled the room, Daniel looked out at the crowd, his heart swelling with gratitude. None of this would have been possible without that snowy night when he had stopped to help a stranger. And in that moment, he understood. Life's greatest gifts often arrive unexpectedly, disguised as storms. The Ripple Effect Initiative grew into something far beyond what Daniel or Evelyn could have initially imagined. What started as a single community center in Maplewood blossomed into a network of over 50 centers across the country, each one tailored to meet the unique needs of its local population. These weren't just buildings. They were lifelines for struggling families, safe spaces for children, and hubs of innovation where dreams took flight. People from all walks of life came together under their roofs, united by shared goals and aspirations. The initiative became synonymous with hope, proving that even in the darkest times, communities could rise above adversity when given the right tools and opportunities. One of the most remarkable aspects of the project was how it adapted to different environments. In rural areas, the centers focused on agricultural training and access to healthcare services. Urban locations emphasized job readiness programs, affordable childcare, and creative arts workshops. Coastal towns incorporated environmental conservation efforts, teaching residents how to protect their ecosystems while fostering sustainable livelihoods. Each center reflected the culture and challenges of its community, but they all shared a common thread: the belief that everyone deserved a chance to thrive. This philosophy resonated deeply with those who walked through their doors, creating a sense of ownership and pride. As the initiative expanded, so did the stories of transformation. In a small town in Ohio, a single mother named Lisa found stability after years of hardship. Before discovering the center, she worked 3 jobs just to keep food on the table, often leaving her 2 young daughters alone for hours at a time. Through the center's child care program, she was able to enroll her kids in after-school activities while attending free vocational classes herself. Within months, Lisa secured a better-paying position at a local business, breaking the cycle of poverty that had trapped her family for generations. Her story wasn't unique. Hundreds like hers emerged from every corner of the network, each one a testament to the power of collective effort. Back in Maplewood, Daniel continued to play an integral role in the initiative's growth. Though he no longer managed day-to-day operations at the original center, he traveled frequently, visiting new locations and offering guidance to staff and volunteers. He saw firsthand the impact of their work, meeting individuals whose lives had been forever changed by the resources provided. One visit stood out vividly in his memory: a trip to a center in Arizona, nestled in the heart of a Native American reservation. There, he met a teenage girl named Ayanna, who had discovered her love for photography through the center's art program. With borrowed equipment and endless determination, she captured breathtaking images of the desert landscape, earning recognition in regional competitions. When Daniel asked her what inspired her, Ayanna replied simply, "This place showed me I could dream bigger." Evelyn, too, remained deeply involved, though her role evolved over time. Initially, she acted primarily as a financial backer, using her wealth to secure funding and resources. But as the initiative gained momentum, she began taking on a more hands-on approach, working alongside Daniel to strategize future expansions and address emerging challenges. She also used her influence to advocate for policies supporting underserved communities, speaking at conferences and lobbying government officials. Her passion for the cause was undeniable, driven not only by her admiration for Daniel's vision, but also by the personal growth she experienced along the way. Helping others had reignited her own sense of purpose, reminding her why she had pursued philanthropy in the first place. Despite their successes, the journey wasn't without obstacles. Funding gaps occasionally threatened progress, forcing them to get creative with fundraising campaigns. Resistance from skeptics, those who questioned whether such ambitious projects could truly make a difference, tested their resolve. And logistical hurdles like securing permits or navigating bureaucratic red tape sometimes slowed things down. Yet every challenge seemed to bring people closer together, strengthening the bonds within the network. Volunteers doubled their efforts, donors increased their contributions, and beneficiaries themselves stepped up to help wherever possible. It was this spirit of resilience that kept the initiative moving forward, no matter the odds. Through it all, Daniel and Evelyn's friendship deepened. They spent countless hours discussing ideas, sharing meals, and reflecting on the lessons they had learned. Evelyn often marveled at Daniel's ability to remain humble despite the acclaim he received. "You've touched so many lives," she told him once during a late-night conversation. "Don't you ever feel proud of yourself?" Daniel chuckled, softly. "I do, but not in the way you think. My pride comes from seeing others succeed. That's what makes this whole thing worthwhile." His words stayed with Evelyn long after their talk ended, reinforcing her belief in the importance of putting others first. Their collaboration extended beyond professional endeavors. They supported each other personally as well. When Daniel faced moments of doubt, wondering if he was doing enough or making the right decisions, Evelyn offered reassurance. And when Evelyn struggled with self-doubt, questioning whether her wealth truly made a meaningful impact, Daniel reminded her of the tangible changes they had witnessed. Together they formed a partnership built on trust, mutual respect, and a shared commitment to making the world a better place. By the 5th year of the initiative, its reach had grown exponentially. Media coverage brought global attention, inspiring similar projects in other countries. Schools began incorporating case studies of the Ripple Effect initiative into their curriculums, highlighting it as an example of grassroots activism done right. Celebrities and influencers endorsed the cause, amplifying its message to millions. Even corporations, eager to align themselves with positive social movements, contributed funds and expertise. The ripple effect, as Evelyn had once described, it was spreading farther than anyone had anticipated. Yet amidst the accolades and achievements, Daniel never lost sight of the core values that had guided him from the beginning. Every decision he made prioritized the needs of the community, ensuring that the initiative remained grounded in authenticity. He encouraged transparency, regularly holding town hall meetings where beneficiaries could voice concerns or suggestions. He also insisted on involving local leaders in planning processes, recognizing that sustainable change required input from those most affected. This approach earned him widespread respect, solidifying his reputation as a leader who led with empathy and integrity. For Evelyn, the initiative represented more than just another philanthropic endeavor. It was a turning point in her life. Working alongside Daniel and witnessing the tangible outcomes of their efforts restored her faith in humanity. She realized that wealth, when used wisely, could be a force for good, bridging divides and empowering individuals to create brighter futures. More importantly, she discovered a renewed sense of connection, forming relationships that transcended titles and backgrounds. For the first time in years, she felt truly fulfilled, knowing that her actions were making a lasting difference. As the decade mark approached, plans were set in motion to celebrate the initiative's milestone anniversary. A gala was organized, bringing together beneficiaries, volunteers, donors, and supporters from around the world. The event would serve not only as a celebration of past accomplishments, but also as a platform to announce future goals. Daniel and Evelyn worked tirelessly to ensure everything went smoothly, coordinating logistics and preparing speeches. Though the scale of the gathering was daunting, they approached it with the same enthusiasm that had fueled their journey from the start. On the evening of the gala, the atmosphere buzzed with excitement. Attendees mingled beneath twinkling lights, sharing stories of triumph and gratitude. On-stage performances by talented artists, many of whom had honed their skills at the centers, took turns captivating the audience. When it was finally time for Daniel and Evelyn to speak, the room fell silent, anticipation hanging thick in the air. Standing side by side, they delivered heartfelt remarks, thanking everyone who had contributed to the initiative's success. Daniel spoke of the courage and resilience he had witnessed, while Evelyn highlighted the transformative power of kindness. Their words resonated deeply, drawing tears and applause from the crowd. As the night drew to a close, Daniel found himself standing outside gazing up at the star-filled sky. Beside him, Evelyn joined him in quiet reflection. "Do you remember that stormy night we met?" she asked softly. Daniel smiled. "How could I forget? It changed everything." Evelyn nodded, her expression thoughtful. "It changed me too. You reminded me of something I'd forgotten, that the smallest acts of kindness can spark the biggest transformations." Daniel looked at her, his eyes filled with gratitude. "And you reminded me that we're capable of so much more than we think. Together, there's nothing we can't achieve." In that moment, surrounded by the echoes of laughter and joy from inside, Daniel understood the true essence of their journey. It wasn't about the money or the fame. It was about the connections forged, the lives uplifted, and the proof that even in the face of adversity, humanity could shine brightest. The snowstorm that had brought them together years ago had indeed sparked a ripple effect, one that, the years following the gala, marked a new chapter for Daniel and Evelyn, as well as for the Ripple Effect initiative. With the momentum from their decade-long success, they began exploring even bolder ideas to address some of society's most pressing challenges. Climate change, education inequality, and mental health awareness became focal points of their efforts. They knew these were complex issues that couldn't be solved overnight, but they also believed that incremental progress could lead to meaningful change. This belief drove them to push boundaries, experiment with innovative solutions, and collaborate with experts from diverse fields. One of their first major undertakings was launching a program called Green Horizons, aimed at empowering communities to combat environmental degradation while improving their livelihoods. The initiative introduced sustainable farming techniques, renewable energy projects, and waste management systems tailored to local needs. In coastal regions, for example, they taught residents how to build mangrove barriers to protect against rising sea levels. In urban areas, rooftop gardens and community composting programs flourished, turning neglected spaces into thriving green zones. These efforts not only helped mitigate climate impacts, but also created jobs and fostered a deeper connection between people and their environment. The Green Horizons project quickly gained traction, earning praise from environmentalists and policymakers alike. Schools incorporated its curriculum into science classes, encouraging students to think critically about sustainability. Corporations partnered with the initiative, pledging resources and expertise to scale up successful pilot programs. What started as a small idea blossomed into a movement, inspiring individuals to take ownership of their ecological footprint. For Daniel and Evelyn, this was proof that when you gave people the tools and knowledge, they could become agents of change in their own right. Education remained another cornerstone of their work. While the original centers had always offered tutoring and mentorship programs, Daniel and Evelyn decided to expand these efforts by creating scholarships for underprivileged youth. The scholarships covered everything from college tuition to vocational training, ensuring that financial barriers wouldn't stand in the way of someone's potential. One recipient, a young woman named Maria from a low-income neighborhood in Chicago, went on to study engineering at a prestigious university. She later returned to her hometown, using her skills to design affordable housing solutions for families struggling with homelessness. Her story inspired countless others, reinforcing the idea that education was a powerful equalizer. Mental health advocacy also took center stage during this period, recognizing the growing need for accessible mental health services. Especially in underserved areas, Daniel and Evelyn launched a campaign to destigmatize seeking help. Workshops, counseling sessions, and peer support groups became staples at the centers. They hired licensed therapists and trained volunteers to provide crisis intervention and emotional support. Additionally, they partnered with tech companies to develop an app that connected users with mental health professionals via video calls, making care available to those in remote locations. The response was overwhelming, with thousands downloading the app within weeks of its release. It became clear that addressing mental health wasn't just a moral imperative, it was essential for building stronger, healthier communities. Despite their successes, Daniel often found himself reflecting on the journey so far. He marveled at how much had changed since that snowy night when he'd stumbled upon Evelyn's stranded car. Back then, his biggest worry had been paying rent or keeping food on the table. Now, he stood at the helm of a global movement, shaping policies and influencing lives. Yet he never allowed himself to forget where it all began. Whenever he felt overwhelmed by the scale of their work, he reminded himself of the simple act of kindness that had sparked it all, stopping to help a stranger in need. That memory grounded him, reminding him that true impact stemmed not from grand gestures but from genuine human connection. Evelyn, too, underwent a profound transformation over the years. Once consumed by the pressures of maintaining her empire, she now embraced a simpler, more fulfilling existence. She sold off parts of her business portfolio, choosing instead to focus on philanthropy full-time. Her days were filled with purpose, traveling to different centers, meeting beneficiaries, and brainstorming ways to tackle emerging challenges. She no longer cared about titles or accolades. What mattered most to her was seeing the tangible results of their work. Watching children laugh, parents find employment, and entire neighborhoods come alive with hope reaffirmed her belief that wealth's greatest value lay in its ability to uplift others. Their partnership continued to thrive, evolving into something akin to family. Though neither of them had anticipated forming such a deep bond when they first met, they now leaned on each other through both triumphs and setbacks. When Daniel faced moments of self-doubt, Evelyn was there to remind him of his strengths. And, when Evelyn grappled with guilt over not doing enough, Daniel reassured her that every step forward mattered. Their dynamic was built on mutual respect and shared values, qualities that made their collaboration not only effective, but deeply rewarding. As the Ripple Effect initiative entered its second decade, Daniel and Evelyn set their sights on expanding globally. They identified countries facing severe poverty, conflict, or natural disasters as potential sites for new centers. Establishing these hubs required navigating cultural differences, language barriers, and political complexities, but they approached each challenge with patience and determination. Local leaders played a crucial role in guiding their efforts, ensuring that the centers addressed specific needs without imposing external agendas. By the end of the third year, they had successfully opened facilities in 3 continents, laying the foundation for further growth. These international projects brought fresh perspectives and innovations back to the original network. Ideas like microfinance cooperatives, mobile health clinics, and digital literacy workshops originated abroad before being adapted domestically. The exchange enriched everyone involved, fostering a sense of global interconnectedness. Beneficiaries from Maplewood found themselves learning from peers in Kenya, while teenagers in Brazil collaborated with counterparts in India on joint art exhibitions. What emerged was a tapestry of shared experiences, proving that despite geographical and cultural differences, humanity's struggles and triumphs were universal. Throughout this expansion, Daniel and Evelyn remained committed to staying true to their roots. They insisted that every decision prioritize the voices of those directly affected, whether it was choosing which programs to implement or determining how funds should be allocated. Transparency and accountability were non-negotiable, earning them trust and loyalty from communities worldwide. Even as the initiative grew larger and more complex, its essence remained unchanged, a steadfast commitment to empowering individuals and fostering resilience. By the 15th anniversary of the initiative, the ripple effect had reached staggering proportions. Over 200 centers operated across 6 continents, serving millions of people annually. Countless lives had been transformed, dreams realized, and cycles of poverty broken. Yet perhaps the most significant achievement was intangible: the restoration of faith in humanity. People who had once felt invisible or powerless now saw themselves as capable contributors to their communities. Strangers became neighbors, united by a shared vision of a better future. To celebrate the milestone, Daniel and Evelyn organized a virtual summit, inviting participants from every corner of the globe. Speakers included beneficiaries, volunteers, donors, and even world leaders who had been inspired by the initiative's success. Testimonials poured in, each one a testament to the power of collective action. A farmer from Ethiopia spoke of how sustainable agriculture practices had revitalized his village. A teacher from Australia shared how the mentorship program had reignited her passion for education. A teenager from Canada described how the mental health app had saved her life during a dark period. These stories wove together into a narrative of hope, resilience, and possibility. During the closing remarks, Daniel took the stage, his voice steady yet filled with emotion. 15 years ago, I stood in a snowstorm, unsure of what the future held. Today, I stand here surrounded by evidence of what happens when we choose kindness over indifference, action over apathy. None of this would have been possible without you, all of you, who believed in this vision and worked tirelessly to bring it to life. His words drew thunderous applause, echoing across screens around the world. Beside him, Evelyn smiled, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "This is just the beginning," she added. "There's still so much work to do, so many lives to touch. Let's keep going, together." In the months that followed, Daniel and Evelyn turned their attention to the next phase of their mission, addressing systemic inequalities that perpetuated poverty and marginalization. They launched research initiatives to identify root causes and develop data-driven strategies for long-term solutions. Partnerships with universities, governments, and grassroots organizations strengthened. As the Ripple Effect initiative entered its third decade, Daniel and Evelyn found themselves at a crossroads. The organization had grown exponentially, touching millions of lives across the globe, but they knew that sustaining such momentum required constant innovation and adaptation. The world was changing rapidly. Technological advancements, shifting demographics, and emerging global crises demanded fresh approaches to age-old problems. They understood that resting on their laurels wasn't an option. The initiative needed to evolve if it hoped to remain relevant and impactful. One of the most pressing challenges they faced was the rise of automation and artificial intelligence in the workforce. While these technologies promised efficiency and progress, they also posed significant threats to traditional jobs, particularly for low-skilled workers. Entire industries were being reshaped overnight, leaving many without stable employment or clear pathways forward. Recognizing this trend, Daniel and Evelyn launched a program called Future Skills, designed to equip people with the tools needed to thrive in an increasingly digital economy. Coding boot camps, robotics workshops, and entrepreneurship training became staples at the centers, empowering participants to embrace change rather than fear it. The Future Skills program quickly gained traction, attracting not only individuals seeking new opportunities but also businesses looking to upskill their employees. Tech giants like Google and Microsoft joined as partners, providing resources and expertise to ensure the curriculum stayed cutting edge. What started as a small pilot project soon expanded into a nationwide effort, with thousands graduating each year. One graduate, a middle-aged factory worker named James, transitioned from assembling car parts to developing software applications after completing the program. His story became emblematic of what was possible when determination met opportunity, a testament to the initiative's ability to adapt to modern realities. Another area of focus was addressing the growing issue of social isolation, exacerbated by urbanization and the rise of digital communication. Despite living in densely populated areas, many people reported feeling lonelier than ever before. To combat this, Daniel and Evelyn introduced community-building initiatives aimed at fostering real-world connections. Regular events like potluck dinners, storytelling nights, and outdoor activities brought neighbors together, creating spaces where relationships could flourish organically. Volunteers played a crucial role in organizing these gatherings, ensuring they reflected the unique cultures and traditions of each locality. Over time, these efforts helped rebuild the sense of belonging that had been eroded by modern life. Education continued to be a cornerstone of their work, but Daniel and Evelyn decided to take a more proactive approach. Instead of waiting for students to seek help, they implemented outreach programs targeting schools in underserved areas. Mobile classrooms equipped with laptops, tablets, and educational materials traveled to remote villages, bringing learning directly to children who might otherwise fall through the cracks. Teachers accompanied the units, offering lessons in math, science, art, and even coding. For many kids, these visits represented their first exposure to formal education, sparking curiosity and ambition that would shape their futures. Healthcare. Access remained another critical priority, especially in regions where medical services were scarce or unaffordable. Building on earlier successes with mobile health clinics, Daniel and Evelyn expanded the program to include telemedicine services, enabling patients to consult specialists via video calls. They also partnered with pharmaceutical companies to distribute affordable medications and vaccines, tackling preventable diseases that disproportionately affected marginalized communities. A mother in rural India described how the clinic had saved her son's life during a severe asthma attack, a moment that underscored the profound impact of accessible healthcare. Despite their achievements, Daniel and Evelyn never lost sight of the importance of humility and reflection. They regularly visited various centers, listening to feedback from staff, volunteers, and beneficiaries. These interactions reminded them of the human stories behind the statistics, the struggles, triumphs, and aspirations that fueled their mission. During one such visit to a center in Kenya, Daniel met a young girl named Amina, whose infectious laughter lit up the room. She had participated in the organization's literacy program and was now teaching her younger siblings to read. As she proudly showed him a handmade book she had created, Daniel felt a lump form in his throat. Moments like these reinforced why they did what they did, to create opportunities for people to write their own stories. Evelyn, too, found herself continually inspired by the resilience and creativity of those they served. On a trip to Brazil, she attended a music festival organized entirely by teenagers from the local center. The event featured performances ranging from samba to hip-hop, showcasing not only talent but also unity among youth from diverse backgrounds. Afterward, a boy approached her, shyly handing over a CD he had recorded himself. "Thank you for believing in us," he said simply, before running off. Evelyn held the disc tightly, overwhelmed by the realization that their work wasn't just about solving problems. It was about nurturing dreams. Their partnership remained as strong as ever, though both acknowledged that the journey hadn't always been easy. There were disagreements, moments of frustration, and periods of exhaustion. Yet they navigated these challenges with grace, leaning on their shared commitment to the cause. When Daniel doubted whether they were doing enough, Evelyn reminded him of the countless lives transformed. And when Evelyn questioned her decisions, Daniel reassured her that perfection wasn't the goal, progress was. Together, they formed a balance that allowed them to persevere, even when the road ahead seemed uncertain. By the 25th anniversary of the initiative, its reach had become almost unimaginable. Over 500 centers operated worldwide, serving tens of millions annually. Entire generations had grown up under its influence, viewing it not as an external entity but as part of their identity. Alumni networks sprang up, connecting former beneficiaries turned leaders, entrepreneurs, and changemakers. These individuals often returned to volunteer, pay forward the support they had received, or simply share their journeys with others. The ripple effect had truly come full circle, proving that kindness begets kindness in infinite loops. To mark the milestone, Daniel and Evelyn organized a global day of service, inviting everyone touched by the initiative to give back to their communities. From planting trees in deforested areas to cleaning up polluted rivers, acts of generosity unfolded simultaneously across continents. Social media buzzed with photos and videos of people coming together, united by a common purpose. Hashtags like #RippleEffect25 trended worldwide, amplifying the message that collective action could drive meaningful change. It was a celebration not just of what had been achieved, but of the potential still waiting to be unlocked. During the BIA main event, a live-streamed ceremony featuring speakers from every corner of the globe, Daniel took the stage, his voice steady, yet filled with emotion. 25 years ago, I stood in a snowstorm, unsure of what the future held. Today, I stand here surrounded by proof of what happens when we choose compassion over indifference, action over apathy. None of this would have been possible without you, all of you, who believed in this vision and worked tirelessly to bring it to life. His words drew thunderous applause, echoing across screens around the world. Beside him, Evelyn smiled, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "This is just the beginning," she added. "There's still so much work to do, so many lives to touch. Let's keep going. Together." In the years that followed, Daniel and Evelyn shifted their focus toward long-term sustainability. They recognized that while philanthropy could spark change, systemic transformation required systemic solutions. This realization led them to invest heavily in policy advocacy, working with governments and international organizations to enact laws supporting equitable access to education, healthcare, and economic opportunities. Their efforts yielded tangible results, including increased funding for public schools, expanded social safety nets, and stricter regulations on corporate practices harming vulnerable populations. Technology played an increasingly vital role in scaling their impact. Leveraging advancements in data analytics, they developed predictive models to identify emerging needs and allocate resources more efficiently. Artificial intelligence powered chatbots that provided instant answers to frequently asked questions, freeing up staff to focus on complex cases. Blockchain technology ensured transparency in financial transactions, building trust among donors and beneficiaries alike. These innovations didn't replace human connection. They enhanced it, allowing the initiative to serve more people effectively. Through it all, Daniel and Evelyn remained committed to staying grounded in the values that had guided them from the start. Every decision prioritized empathy, inclusivity, and collaboration. They encouraged open dialogue, welcoming input from anyone invested in the initiative's success. Even as the organization grew larger and more complex, its essence remained unchanged. A steadfast belief in the power of humanity to overcome adversity. Reflecting on their journey, Daniel often thought about the lessons he had learned along the As the Ripple Effect initiative moved into its fourth decade. Daniel and Evelyn faced a new set of challenges that tested their resolve in ways they hadn't anticipated. The world was grappling with unprecedented crises. Climate disasters were becoming more frequent. Political tensions threatened global stability, and economic disparities continued to widen. Yet, amidst these daunting realities, Daniel and Evelyn remained steadfast in their belief that compassion and collaboration could still drive meaningful change. They understood that while the scale of the problems had grown, so too had the potential for collective action. One of the most pressing issues they tackled during this period was climate migration, the mass displacement of people due to rising sea levels, droughts, and extreme weather events. Entire communities were being forced to leave their homes, often with nowhere to go and no resources to rebuild their lives. Recognizing the urgency of the situation, Daniel and Evelyn launched a program called Safe Havens, designed to assist climate migrants in resettling safely and sustainably. The initiative worked closely with local governments to identify areas where displaced populations could integrate without straining existing infrastructure. Temporary housing units powered by renewable energy, access to healthcare and education, and vocational training programs helped migrants transition into their new environments with dignity. The Safe Havens project quickly gained international attention, drawing praise from environmental activists and humanitarian organizations alike. It wasn't just about providing shelter. It was about fostering resilience and empowering individuals to adapt to their changing circumstances. In Bangladesh, for example, the program introduced floating gardens, a technique allowing farmers to grow crops on waterlogged land, and taught women how to weave mats and baskets using invasive plant species. These innovations not only addressed immediate survival needs but also created income-generating opportunities, enabling families to regain a sense of agency over their futures. Stories like these reminded Daniel and Evelyn that even in the face of devastation, creativity and determination could pave the way forward. Another area of focus was addressing the mental health toll of living through prolonged crises. The constant uncertainty brought on by climate emergencies, pandemics, and social unrest left many struggling with anxiety, depression, and trauma. To combat this, the initiative expanded its mental health services, incorporating trauma-informed care practices and peer support networks. Mobile counseling units traveled to disaster zones, offering immediate psychological first aid to those affected. Virtual platforms provided long-term therapy options, ensuring that help was accessible regardless of location. Art therapy workshops became particularly popular, giving participants an outlet to process their emotions and connect with others who shared similar experiences. Education remained central to their efforts, but Daniel and Evelyn recognized the need to rethink traditional models in light of evolving societal demands. They began advocating for lifelong learning systems that prioritized adaptability and critical thinking over rote memorization. Partnerships with universities and tech companies led to the creation of micro-credentialing programs, allowing individuals to acquire specialized skills in shorter timeframes. For instance, a single mother in South Africa completed a 6-month course in cybersecurity and landed a job at a major corporation within weeks of graduating. Her success story inspired countless others, reinforcing the idea that education should be flexible, inclusive, and responsive to real-world needs. Healthcare access also underwent significant transformation under their leadership. Building on earlier successes with telemedicine, Daniel and Evelyn introduced AI-powered diagnostic tools that enabled remote doctors to detect diseases early and recommend treatment plans. Drones delivered medical supplies to hard-to-reach areas, cutting down delivery times from days to hours. Community health workers received advanced training, equipping them to handle emergencies and provide preventive care. A village in Nepal, once isolated and underserved, saw infant mortality rates drop dramatically after the introduction of these innovations. Such outcomes highlighted the importance of leveraging technology to bridge gaps in service delivery. Despite their achievements, Daniel and Evelyn never lost sight of the human element behind their work. They continued to visit centers regularly, immersing themselves in the day-to-day operations and listening intently to feedback from staff and beneficiaries. During one such trip to a center in Colombia, Daniel met a teenager named Carlos, whose family had fled violence in Venezuela. Despite the hardships he had endured, Carlos radiated optimism, thanks in part to the mentorship program that had helped him discover a passion for engineering. As he proudly showed Daniel a prototype of a solar-powered water purifier he had designed, Daniel felt a surge of pride, not just for Carlos, but for everyone involved in making moments like these possible. Evelyn, too, found herself continually inspired by the resilience and ingenuity of those they served. On a visit to a refugee camp in Jordan, she witnessed firsthand how women entrepreneurs were turning adversity into opportunity. With support from the initiative, they had started small businesses selling handmade goods online, generating enough income to support their families. One woman, Fatima, presented Evelyn with a scarf she had woven herself. "This is for you," she said softly. "Thank you for believing in us when no one else did." Evelyn accepted the gift, her heart swelling with gratitude. Moments like these reinforced why they did what they did, to create spaces where hope could flourish even in the darkest times. Their partnership remained as strong as ever, though both acknowledged that the journey hadn't always been easy. There were disagreements, moments of frustration, and periods of exhaustion. Yet, they navigated these challenges with grace, leaning on their shared commitment to the cause. When Daniel doubted whether they were doing enough, Evelyn reminded him of the countless lives transformed, and when Evelyn questioned her decisions, Daniel reassured her that perfection wasn't the goal, progress was. Together, they formed a balance that allowed them to persevere, even when the road ahead seemed uncertain. By the 35th anniversary of the initiative, its reach had become almost unimaginable. Over 1,000 centers operated worldwide, serving hundreds of millions annually. Entire generations had grown up under its influence, viewing it not as an external entity but as part of their identity. Alumni networks sprang up, connecting former beneficiaries turned leaders, entrepreneurs, and changemakers. These individuals often returned to volunteer, pay forward the support they had received, or simply share their journeys with others. The ripple effect had truly come full circle, proving that kindness begets kindness in infinite loops. To mark the milestone, Daniel and Evelyn organized a global summit, inviting participants from every corner of the globe. Speakers included beneficiaries, volunteers, donors, and even world leaders who had been inspired by the initiative's success. Testimonials poured in, each one a testament to the power of collective action. A farmer from Ethiopia spoke of how sustainable agriculture practices had revitalized his village. A teacher from Australia shared how the mentorship program had reignited her passion for education. A teenager from Canada described how the mental health app had saved her life during a dark period. These stories wove together into a narrative of hope, resilience, and possibility. During the closing remarks, Daniel took the stage, his voice steady yet filled with emotion. 35 years ago, I stood in a snowstorm, unsure of what the future held. Today, I stand here, surrounded by proof of what happens when we choose compassion over indifference, action over apathy. None of this would have been possible without you, all of you, who believed in this vision and worked tirelessly to bring it to life. His words drew thunderous applause echoing across screens around the world. Beside him, Evelyn smiled, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "This is just the beginning," she added. "There's still so much work to do, so many lives to touch. Let's keep going. Together." In the years that followed, Daniel and Evelyn shifted their focus toward intergenerational equity, recognizing that today's choices would shape tomorrow's world. They invested heavily in youth-led movements, amplifying voices advocating for climate justice, racial equality, and gender parity. Training programs equipped young activists with the skills needed to organize campaigns, engage policymakers, and mobilize communities. Social media platforms became powerful tools for spreading awareness and driving grassroots action. A group of teenagers in India, for example, successfully lobbied their government to ban single-use plastics after participating in one such program, a testament to the transformative power of empowered youth. Technology continued to play a pivotal role in scaling their impact. Leveraging advancements in data analytics, they developed predictive models to anticipate emerging needs and allocate resources more efficiently. Artificial intelligence-powered chatbots that provided instant answers to frequently asked questions, freeing up staff to focus on complex cases. Blockchain technology ensured, as the Ripple Effect initiative approached its 40th anniversary, Daniel and Evelyn found themselves reflecting deeply on the legacy they had built together. The organization had grown beyond anything they could have envisioned, touching millions of lives across the globe. Yet, as they looked to the future, they understood that true sustainability meant empowering others to take ownership of the vision. It was no longer just about what they could do. It was about ensuring that the initiative would continue to thrive long after they were gone. To achieve this goal, Daniel and Evelyn began transitioning leadership roles to a new generation of changemakers. They identified individuals who embodied the same values of compassion, resilience, and innovation. People like Amina from Kenya, whose literacy program had transformed her community. Carlos from Colombia, whose engineering projects addressed local challenges. And Fatima from Jordan, whose entrepreneurship inspired other women to pursue their dreams. These leaders were invited to join a global advisory board, tasked with guiding the initiative's strategic direction while maintaining its grassroots spirit. For Daniel and Evelyn, passing the torch wasn't an act of stepping back, but rather a way to ensure that fresh perspectives and ideas kept the mission alive. The transition process was gradual and intentional. Daniel and Evelyn spent countless hours mentoring these emerging leaders, sharing stories of their journey and imparting lessons learned along the way. They emphasized the importance of humility, reminding them that success wasn't measured by numbers or headlines, but by the impact on individual lives. "Never lose sight of why we started this," Daniel often said during training sessions. "It's not about us. It's about the people we serve." Evelyn echoed his sentiments, urging the new leaders to stay grounded in empathy and collaboration. Together, they created a culture where everyone felt valued and empowered to contribute their unique strengths. Despite handing over much of the day-to-day responsibilities, Daniel and Evelyn remained actively involved, particularly in areas close to their hearts. Evelyn focused on expanding partnerships with governments and international organizations, advocating for policies that prioritized equity and sustainability. She traveled extensively, meeting with world leaders to discuss systemic solutions to global challenges such as climate change, poverty, and education inequality. Her tireless efforts earned her recognition as one of the most influential voices in modern philanthropy, though she never sought accolades for herself. Instead, she used her platform to amplify the voices of those working tirelessly on the ground. Daniel, meanwhile, dedicated his time to fostering intergenerational connections within the initiative. He believed that bridging the gap between older and younger generations was key to creating lasting change. To this end, he launched a storytelling project called Voices of Hope, which documented the experiences of beneficiaries, volunteers, and staff across different age groups. Through written narratives, audio recordings, and video interviews, participants shared how the initiative had impacted their lives and shaped their aspirations. The project culminated in a traveling exhibition that visited centers worldwide, inspiring dialogue and understanding among diverse audiences. One of the most poignant moments came when Daniel met a young girl named Sophia during a visit to a center in Brazil. Barely 10 years old, Sophia had participated in the art therapy program after losing her home in a flood. Her paintings, vibrant and full of life, captured both the pain of displacement and the joy of finding hope again. When Daniel asked her what she wanted to be when she grew up, she replied without hesitation, "I want to help people, just like you helped me." Her words struck a deep chord, reminding Daniel of the profound responsibility that came with shaping young minds and hearts. Evelyn, too, encountered moments that reaffirmed her belief in humanity's capacity for good. On a trip to Ethiopia, she attended the opening of a new safe havens facility designed to assist climate migrants. As she walked through the grounds, she noticed a group of children playing soccer, their laughter echoing against the backdrop of temporary housing units powered by solar panels. One boy ran up to her, holding out a small handmade bracelet. "This is for you," he said shyly. "Thank you for giving us a place to live." Evelyn accepted the gift, tears welling up in her eyes. In that moment, she realized that the initiative wasn't just about providing resources. It was about restoring dignity and fostering a sense of belonging. As the 40th anniversary celebration approached, preparations reached a fever pitch. The event was planned as a hybrid gathering, combining in-person festivities at the original Maplewood Center with virtual components accessible to participants worldwide. Beneficiaries, volunteers, donors, and supporters from every corner of the globe submitted videos sharing their favorite memories and expressing gratitude for the initiative's impact. Art installations, musical performances, and panel discussions highlighted the diversity and creativity of the communities served. Even former critics praised the initiative's ability to adapt and innovate in response to evolving needs. During the main ceremony, held under a canopy of twinkling lights, outside the Maplewood Center, Daniel took the stage alongside Evelyn. His voice trembled slightly as he began speaking, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what they had accomplished together. 40 years ago, I stood in a snowstorm, unsure of what the future held. Today, I stand here, surrounded by proof of what happens when we choose kindness over indifference, action over apathy. This journey has taught me that even the smallest gestures can spark the biggest transformations. None of this would have been possible without you, all of you, who believed in this vision and worked tirelessly to bring it to life. Evelyn stepped forward next, her expression soft yet resolute. When I first met Daniel during that storm, I was searching for something I didn't even know I'd lost, a sense of purpose, connection, and hope. What I found instead was a reminder of the power of humanity to overcome adversity. Together, we've built something extraordinary, but this isn't the end. It's a new beginning, a chance for all of us to carry this spirit of compassion forward into the future. Her words drew thunderous applause, echoing across screens around the world. In the months that followed, Daniel and Evelyn officially stepped down from their leadership roles, entrusting the initiative's future to the next generation. Though bittersweet, the decision brought them immense peace, knowing that the work they had started would endure. They continued to support the organization in advisory capacities, offering guidance whenever needed, but their primary focus shifted toward personal reflection and rest. For the first time in decades, they allowed themselves the luxury of slowing down, savoring quiet moments together. Daniel returned to Maplewood frequently, finding solace in the familiar surroundings of the cabin where it all began. He spent hours tending to the garden, watching birds flit between trees and jotting down thoughts in a leather-bound journal. Occasionally, he received letters from beneficiaries thanking him for changing their lives, each one bringing a smile to his face. Evelyn, too, embraced a simpler lifestyle, dividing her time between writing memoirs and mentoring young entrepreneurs. Her book, titled Ripples of Kindness, became a bestseller, inspiring readers to seek meaning beyond material wealth. Their friendship remained as strong as ever, rooted in mutual respect and shared memories. They often reminisced about the early days of the initiative, the late-night brainstorming sessions, the challenges faced, and the triumphs celebrated. Though they no longer worked side by side daily, their bond endured, strengthened by the knowledge that they had created something far greater than themselves. Together, they proved that even in a world filled with storms, acts of kindness could ignite waves of change, touching lives in ways no one could have imagined. Years later, as Daniel sat on the porch of his cabin, gazing out at the golden hues of autumn leaves, he reflected on the journey that had begun with a simple decision to help a stranger. That snowy night had set off a chain reaction, transforming not only his life but also the lives of countless others. Beside him, Evelyn joined him in quiet contemplation. "Do you ever wonder what might have happened if we hadn't met that night?" she asked softly. Daniel chuckled. "All the time. But then I think about everything that came after. The laughter, the tears, the dreams realized. And I realize it was meant to be." Evelyn nodded, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "Me too. Sometimes the smallest choices lead to the greatest outcomes." And so, the ripple effect continued, carried forward by those who believed in its power. From the bustling streets of urban centers to the quiet corners of rural villages, the spirit of compassion and collaboration lived on, proving that humanity's greatest strength lay not in wealth or technology, but in its ability to connect, uplift, and inspire. Through every challenge and triumph, Daniel and Evelyn's story served as a testament to the enduring power of kindness, a reminder that even in the darkest times, a single act of generosity could light the way for generations to come.